Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new video over on the channel by the name of LeaIsChill. Today, I am currently prepping a video for tomorrow. I'm installing the new Jujutsu Kaisen game. So in the meantime, we're gonna go ahead and hop right into the Tokyo Ghoul Break the Chains tier list and try and put every character that currently exists inside the game in an order of how effective and how worthwhile it is to upgrade them. And we're just gonna get right to it. Frankly, so I went through every single character inside the game to try and read up about what characters specialize in and what they're best with. And through all of it, I was pretty much sold on the fact that exclusive characters that have dropped so far are pretty much the toppest tier. And so I'm going to toss Kaneki immediately in S tier. And honestly, I think Arima has a lot of potential, but he seems like he is a noticeable step down from Kaneki's effectiveness. So Kaneki specializes in extreme weakness damage, which is not something that any other character in the game currently has. And so he's able to, even when he's type neutral, break enemies and really destroy them, as well as stack up attack buffs on himself without having to really worry about it. And he has an instant revival. So he's kind of built different. Arima is a follow-up attacker on all single target attacks, so they do work well together. Honestly, the best team in the game probably does include both Kaneki and Arima, but because I'm noticing the difference between the two, I'm gonna say Arima is just one step down from that. In terms of other S tiers, I gotta immediately toss Uta inside S tier as well. He basically works how Red Gauther works inside Seven Deadly Sins Grand Cross. So he's able to upgrade skill cards pretty much for free. And because of his passive that also upgrades one card for free whenever you get into the battle, it just seems like he's going to be relevant for a long ass time. Unfortunately, a lot of the game starts to focus on mono teams as you move on. So you're going to only be able to use him on mono speed. We'll see if we'll get more characters that use the same sort of mechanics that he does. But definitely Uta, if you pull a copy of him and a copy of Kaneki, you pretty much do every single piece of content inside the game right now. You might struggle a little bit with trying to beat some of the end game content if you don't have any dupes inside Kaneki, but regardless, they are just both cracked together. Upgrade cards are just incredible. And in terms of other characters I would put in S tier, I'm really not sure, so we're just gonna start going through this one by one. I think Akira Mado, I've seen what she can do, and she's really effective at taking down the Eto Owl boss fight. So honestly, I might put her up alongside Arima. I'll probably put some more characters. It'll be in order, so I'll probably push her like down the A tier, probably like bottom of A tier. But because she has the Blood Piercer debuff, she has the Retaliate, so she always hits people back whenever she gets hit, and she specializes in AoE damage to try and break the entire enemy team. It just works really well for what it's built for, and I'd argue like this Toka Rabbit is a little bit worse off than her because this Akira has Retaliate, and Retaliate, whenever she gets hit, she'll hit back, means that she'll constantly be breaking the enemies even when you're not using cards, and Toka Rabbit doesn't really have that. She more so buffs your team and sort of does that. In terms of Chu Hachikawa, I don't personally have him, and so I don't have 100% like damage tests on him, but from what I can see, he seems like he's kind of mid. It's mostly, he does a shit ton of damage in the early parts of the fight, and so he's really able to kill enemies early on and reduce their HP to super low amounts, so you can try and AoE them and kill them otherwise. But because of how relevant single target damage is, it's really hard to justify using him unless it's going to be some kind of PvP build. So obviously PvP, I would put him up inside B tier, I would say. Maybe above Toka Rabbit even, just because of him being built to kill enemies at high HP. But in terms of general use inside the game, unless I get to test him on Eto Owl, I'm currently pretty happy putting him here for the moment. Next up would be Hinami. I think Hinami is really good. She's the only healer currently inside the game, and so I want to say that she's pretty relevant and put her into A tier. It's just tough because a lot of the levels that are blue right now that are especially relevant will reduce your regeneration amount or will just not really synergize too well with max HP. It seems like she's really made for a team with this Yoshimura Owl, which I personally don't have a copy of, and so it's kind of hard to see her true value at the moment. I have had some luck using her to cheese a couple of quests, but I think that she's one of the more unreliable ones in that way because of how many blue enemies get rid of regeneration rate and vampirism, which is literally her thing as a green character. So we'll see if we get some more bosses that make her more relevant too. Itori? Originally I said Itori was not that great. When I read her kit, I wasn't too enthused about it, and I was kind of reading it and not too sure. But after realizing just how strong the red synergy is inside the game, and just how relevant getting rid of all debuffs on the team is, I think Itori, inarguably, is another one of these characters that I would toss right into S tier. She has the stat buff, she has the debuff removal for your team, she has the strength synergy, so you'll be able to make your strength team even stronger. If you're trying to go for an AoE build, for example, she's just going to do fantastic. And because Eto Owl is like the second boss fight you have to fight, she's just going to be perfect for that. And moving forward, I feel like there's going to be very few situations where you're running a red team and don't want some sort of buffer on the team. So because Uta is stuck inside the blue category, the red category has Itori to get the AoE buff for Arima as well. So it just kind of works out. Next up, Kuroiwa Arata. I've actually run into a couple of these inside PvP, and it seems like his Retaliate does a good amount of damage, but I haven't run into a lot of troubles trying to kill him, really. He has like the inherent big shield that he creates, and he has Retaliate damage, but it just doesn't quite hit the way that I really need it to. And whenever I'm fighting him, I feel like he's one of the lowest threats inside the game. Also because I use Toka Rabbit and Arima, obviously, he kind of gets destroyed by that. When it comes to the mono CCG team, I think that he could have a lot more potential, like up here even, because his provoke, his like general shield is really solid. But in terms of what the game currently is asking inside PvE, I would put him inside low B tier. He's good, he can take a lot of hits, it's just he won't carry you in a lot of situations where you're trying to use him. Juzo, I've actually run into a couple of Juzos inside PvP as well, and I think I've had more trouble with him than I've had with Hinami. He has the AoE buff, or the AoE technical debuff, even though it doesn't actually apply a debuff to you, where it is able to make you take more damage each time. It's so far been pretty scary to run up against a Juzo, especially because a lot of the best characters inside the game right now, like Rize and Kaneki and Uta, pretty much you're running 3 blues at all times, get destroyed by him. And so he's like an anti-meta pick, though he'll mostly be relevant once you pull him in a future banner, because he'll be a premium unit from here on out. So he's kind of an anti-meta, really interesting pick that works for an AoE team as well. So not quite Arima's either. He's very different, and I love him for it. So I definitely want to get a copy of him at some point. I think that he kind of sits comfortably here. Ayato right here. Upon using Ayato several times, I am pretty happy with how he works. It's kind of tough for me to really value him because inside Crusade Battle right now, the only boss that's red that would be good for Ayato to be good against has a 30% less damage from Aogiri members, and so it doesn't even matter if he's good because he has a straight up debuff regardless. And so there's not really a lot of game modes that he's relevant in, though upon using him in my PvE video earlier today, I would honestly probably put him above Hinami, because he does solid AoEs, he ignores all defenses, he's able to break the enemies really well, and you can build him to level 100 to the point where he typically won't be dying a lot of the time. And so he's a really reliable unit that is pretty much one of our only blue AoE units that doesn't debuff. So he's very specifically made for nuking. And I feel like the Toka Rabbit Ayato team kind of works super well together. All right, Corey Ui, I don't have a lot of opinions on him right now. I saw him a couple of times, and I haven't seen him do a lot of work. I'm gonna put him above Kurui Iwa Arata. It's basically the lower HP he has, the more damage he deals, and so if you can get like a full HP build on him, I do think that he'll end up being one of the better units inside the game. It's just tough for me to see his true value right now, because we also don't have a crazy blue boss to really use him against, except for like Ayato, and that's pretty much it. Like the SSS assignment Ayato, until I unlock Centipede for myself, which should be tomorrow. So we'll see. I think he might just be made specifically for like a mono green team that's focused on max HP alongside Hinami and Yoshimura Owl down here. I'm probably gonna put Yoshimura Owl above Ayato, but not Juzo. He has the max HP buff. He has like extra damage based on max HP that your character has. And so he works really well for that mono skill team to be able to really fill out a fantastic max HP style of build. But I haven't had a lot of trouble with him when he's on other teams that don't involve mono skill or don't involve like sheer healing. So Corey Ui has a lot of potential of going upwards depending on how much, like how relevant he is against the Kaneki Centipede boss fight. I'll have to read up the passives and see, but right now I'm going to put him right here pretty comfortably and see. Motto, D tier. So this motto is made for one game mode. He's made for Force Challenge, and he has like the lower HP that he has, the more damage he deals, and so he's made to pretty much nuke out HP bars against skill characters inside Force Challenge and Teiku. And otherwise, you won't find a lot of positions that he will thrive in, unless you're really running like an Amass team where you were using him alongside SR Ammon and really focusing on being low on HP. But it can be very dangerous, and I feel like because of that, he's just not made to do all that great. Mogan, I'm gonna go ahead and say he's honestly probably below Hachikawa. He has amplification, and so he is relevant in the way where you can use him as the same sort of position as Arima Narukami currently is. He's a red amplification unit that gains extra damage off of how many buffs he has, and stacks his own buffs off of his limits. But because of that, he already has other characters that fit in the same position, but even better. And even when he's fully maxed out, it seems like he's going to do much worse than a lot of other characters that are trying to just make Arima super powerful. And so Mogan, I would say, most of the time I would probably invest in even Akira, just to be able to get the extra weakness damage versus trying to go for Mogan, unless you're really, really desperate to get like a high damage dealer and using Itori to get him the full buffs. But because it's so explicit how you have to use him any single target, I don't think he's going to be all that relevant moving forward. We'll see if he's going to get like a super killer to something, but yeah. Corona. See, I'm going to put Corona and Nishiro just pretty much together. I would say these characters are honestly pretty relevant. I want to move Akira Mato down. I think that feels kind of comfortable. Yeah, I would move Akira down, and I would put the two Yasuhiro sisters inside there. Both Corona and Nishiro work super well together. Nishiro is the amplification character, so she gains extra damage off of every buff she has, and she also has better self buffs than other amplification units in speed. So she's one of the best ones in that category. And Corona gives extra debuffs and extra buffs to the team, and so Nishiro thrives off of having a shit ton of buffs. Corona thrives off of having a shit ton of debuffs on the enemy, and they both work together to give both of those to both teams. And so it's very, very effective, and I really want to get a copy of these two to be able to use them. I think that these two are like together a replacement for this Kaneki, and so it's kind of funny, but in that way, these two I'm pretty comfortable saying that they're pretty, I'm gonna put them above Hinami. They're pretty high in A tier, or like a decent A tier. I'm gonna put him above Ayato too. Because both of them work really well together, and even if you didn't have both, Nashiro by herself is able to give amplification, and Underbelly from Corona could be really relevant if you're running a team with, for example, this Noro right here. He gives Blood Piercer like this Akira does. I'm probably gonna put them right beside each other. Just AoE debuff units that both have Retaliate and are really solid. They're just in their own categories, and so both of them are pretty good picks in terms of fighting bosses, honestly. And yeah, I would say like this Corona and this Noro kind of synergize well together because of the Underbelly and stuff, so you can kind of work around it and make her work on teams even without Nashiro. So I'd say that they're both pretty high up there. Naki, I'm seeing less and less reason to see Naki at his full potential. His main trait is he's able to reduce skill levels of the enemies, and because of it, I tried to read up about every single one of the bosses and see how relevant it might end up being. 90% of bosses inside this game will ignore reducing skill levels, and so Naki feels like he really doesn't have a place just yet. I don't know if we're gonna have a couple of game modes where they're just gonna have like crazy 3-star cards every turn, but I just haven't seen the place to really use him. I do think he has more potential than Hachikawa might, because the skill category is so weak right now, the green category. I think that he has like that extra little bit of give, and you can have a team with him, Gagi, and Guge, and there is like a synergy there, but they aren't on this list, and so we're not going to be able to talk about all of that. Nico, Ladyboy in Love. Honestly, I'd put him above Motto, but I don't think Nico is all that relevant either. Nico does damage to himself, gives buffs to the entire team, and then cleanses all debuffs as well on the 2-star and 3-star. And I just haven't found a lot of situations in which Nico is doing better than pretty much any other unit on the squad, because Uta is also like a crazy ass unit and gives the basic stat buff off of his 1-star card, 2-star card, and 3-star card, and upgrade skill levels on top of that. So Nico is really competing for one of the most highly coveted like speed support roles, and so I would put him especially low inside this, just because it's not really worth it to put materials into him when you could just wait for Uta, or try and build like a more pure DPS team and beat levels instead of like taking a bunch of damage because of him. So I kind of feel like that. Nishiki low-key is like a sleeper hit inside this game. He has like crazy ass vampirism abilities, and so I would honestly put him like after Noro. He's single target and he's very strong in terms of strength. He definitely has a lot more potential alongside Arima versus Mogan, because he's able to also self-heal and kind of, I think he also has a 20% defense debuff every time your turn starts. And so he'll be doing a 20% debuff to the enemy team automatically every single time. And that kind of changes how much damage you can do in a turn. And his single target makes it so Arima will always follow up and do 2 weakness damage per turn no matter what. It kind of just works really well. And in the red category, he works especially solidly. And so I would bring him up to A if it wasn't so good up here. Like, I debate him between Hinami, maybe, but I think that because he's by himself, he really needs Arima to function at his max capacity, and I would put him inside B because of that. Yomo, I think because of his passive, I would put him up here. Honestly, he might even be more relevant than Arima, because his passives give both a team buff and a enemy debuff based on how many hits they do on a given turn based on his limits. And so his passives are one of the best back rows to have inside the game. I'm kind of using him as one of my main back rows pretty much constantly inside the game right now because of how relevant it can be. And there's not a lot of like backup character buffs that exist except for Yomo and Tokurabbit for like pretty much anybody. And so Yomo definitely sleeper hit of the game. His actual kit isn't all that great. He has the blue amplification similar to how Nashiro does, and unfortunately his amplification doesn't hit all that hard. A lot of the time I was testing him against the Crusade Battle Yamori, and he was taking like way too much damage and not dealing nearly enough damage, and so he's not great for using on the field. He's basically great if you think that your main team will not die on a level, and so that's how I would use him, as a main passive. And Rize, I think, can also go up here in S tier. Probably above Arima, honestly, because she can nuke out HP bars so easily, and she works alongside Arima, so they kind of work together anyway. But Rize is a single target DPS that does more crit rate based on how much HP she takes away from the enemies during her combo. And so it makes it so building crit damage or crit rate on her makes her hit like an absolute truck, and I think is supposed to be like the option for people that don't have Wounded Kaneki to be able to beat a lot of levels. She's like the first hop-up benefit, and because she's so easy to get, I would also say that she's more relevant than Nishiro and Corona. Typically, if someone's putting like $40 into the game at any point throughout their entire time playing, they'll get a copy of Rize up to 3-star, and because of that, she's able to do a lot more damage than a lot of other potential characters inside the game at the moment. So she's definitely high up there. She has the extra dodge chance whenever she does that too, so she kind of adds to herself. I do think like Corona and Nishiro will be able to hit higher amounts than she will at their highest tiers, or at their highest upgrades, like when they're fully maxed out. But because it's so hard to pull copies of them, she's inherently S tier because of her ease as well. That's kind of what I'm adding to it. Ryoko Fuiguchi, I think, is actually pretty relevant. She's a stance-based unit where she gets damage reduction if one of your teammates has some sort of stance up. And so I do think she can be one of the more relevant ones inside the game. Legit, I kind of want to put her here. Like, she works really well alongside any character that is going to give a buff to the team. So she'll work alongside Kuroiwa or Rata, but especially like her and Tsukiyama, I would put Tsukiyama like just above Juzo, just below Arima, because he has Provoke, Shield, actually Provoke, Shield, single target DPS. Legit, he might be up here, because there's not a lot of characters that have like a really strong Provoke right now inside the game, and he offers really good shields at the moment, and synergizes really well with the red team, because Arima is able to follow up to him. Yeah, no, I definitely think that Tsukiyama Gourmet is pretty high up here, and he works really well alongside Ryoko because she synergizes with stances. But if you don't have the Tsukiyama, I think that she might be a little bit lower. It's basically just on her main teams where you're able to pop Provoke every single turn, you're able to reduce your damage that you're taking by at least 50%, significant amount every single turn. And so for the skill category, that makes it so you can be especially tanky, then use Hinami to really keep yourself topped off and work around it. Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with that. I think Ryoko's hard, but she'll probably end up being even better the more Provoke units and the more stance units we get moving forward. And so she's like a sleeper hit, I would say, that has a good chance of becoming much, much better. And her passives are also pretty solid. It's all like healing based, I believe. So yeah, Rocco, I have no idea. I don't know where to put you. You're just like an AoE vampirism unit. I feel like you're probably better than Naki is, so I'm going to put you at C tier. I don't actually know any damage tests for him, so I wouldn't be able to give a good opinion. He's basically a really strong AoE vampirism unit that is skill and is able to survive a lot longer than a lot of other characters. Yamori, I think, actually has a really good chance of being like high A. I might put him just below Arima, because he has Incapacitate on every one of his cards. His 1-star requires you to have a debuff on the enemy, but 2-star and above, he'll always incapacitate and stun the enemies no matter what, as long as they don't have like a resistance to it. And so you can use him to cheese a lot of content inside the game. And moving forward, I feel as if the strength team will really thrive off of stacking that sort of buff, Unfortunately, Yomori and Arima don't work together because Yomori is single target, and so the Incapacitate freezes them for a turn, but Arima would then break them out of that immediately, and so they don't kind of synergize together. So Yomori's team is mostly focused around like AoE debuffs, stunning the character that you find to be the most problematic inside a team, and really trying to keep that like chain stun up every single turn. And with that, he's the only strength character that can do so, and that's really important. And finally, last but not least, is Shinohara Arata. I think I've seen a couple of times where he was actually able to do some really good work inside the game. I might move Hinami down, and legit, like, Shinohara Arata seems like he's a little bit more relevant than she was. He gives an AoE buff to his teammates whenever he uses a skill. He gives a shield to his teammates as well. He has a debuff to give to the enemies, and so he's a better version of SR Kaneki. And the skill category is pretty weak right now, and so having like a especially tanky unit that's buffing your teammates to use alongside it. We don't have an amplification unit inside skill yet, but it's still especially good. And so I think I would put him right there. It would be really arguable whether it's him or Hinami inside the bottom of A tier, but it really depends on where Hinami ends up being used in the future, because I don't use her in pretty much any content right now, because it's basically a kill or be killed situation in most content. Yeah, this is kind of what I would say my list is. Wounded Kaneki is definitely #1 unit inside the game. Uta is the best support. Itori is the best strength supporter for mono strength teams. Rize is a low-cost, high DPS unit. Tsukiyama Gourmet is a good provoke unit. Yomo, great back row. Arima, fantastic DPS and works alongside single target, though I do think he gets outpaced by some other characters, and that's his big trouble. Yomori, infinite stun. Juzo, anti-meta and serious damage. I'm happy with this. And obviously the bad characters are the ones down here. This is what I would say my tier list is. And let me know if you guys disagree with any of these. I think there's a couple of these I would debate, like Hinami up or down. I don't know Hirako's actual value, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. I think Nico might be relevant somewhere, but not in my world, so that's fine. Alright. Well, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys tomorrow for another Break the Chains video on Tokyo Ghoul. And I guess a Jujutsu Kaisen video. See you guys then. Bye for now, and take it easy.